Greetings from the Long Island Sound podcast. Welcome to the show. Please rate, review, and comment on the show, and call our listener line and leave a message for our guests. Dial 631-800-3579. All right, enjoy the show.
Thanks for joining us for the Long Island Sound podcast. Each week we explore new music and dive deeper with the artists and their stories behind the music. Please subscribe and rate and review us wherever you stream this podcast. Here's your host, Steve Yusko.
What an interesting and intriguing conversation I had with Paul David Stanko. He's from the Midwest, from the land of Prince. He has very interesting and eclectic music, and we learn a bunch about how he pulls it all together. Let's take a listen to his song, Superhuman.
I'm superhuman. Don't eat, don't sleep. Just keep moving. When you get out on the floor, you won't remember what the hell you came here for. You know this beat will keep you moving. Look at me, I'm futuristic. Do it with me. Then don't be a bunch, just shake your butt with me. You know this beat ain't soporific. Superhuman, got to prove it. Superhuman, got to prove it. Superhuman, got to prove it. Never gonna stop it, you should drop it like it's hot. Let's hop off the nail. What's the square root of pi? Coconut cream! Living the dream. Don't like my hair. Hate your hair. Quit your bitchin'. Can't take him to a meeting with purple hair. I've been sent to Earth to complete my mission. If I can get you to move your feet, then I get to take you home with me. If you need a beer, it's in the kitchen. Superhuman, got to prove it. Superhuman, got to prove it. Superhuman, got to prove it. Never gonna stop it. You should drop it like it's hot. Everybody dance break. The square root of pi isn't pumpkin. It's apple. Look at me. I'm superhuman. Don't eat, don't sleep. Just keep moving. When you get out on the floor, you won't remember what the hell you came here for. You know this beat will keep you moving. Superhuman, got to prove it. Superhuman, got to prove it. Superhuman, got to prove it. Never gonna stop it. You should drop it like it's hot.
Today we travel west to the great state of Minnesota. Paul David Stanko is a multi-instrumentalist and vocalist, churning out songs from his home studio. I look forward to exploring his influences as we get to know the artist behind the music. Hey, welcome to the Long Island Sound, Paul David. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to share about myself and my music.
Hey, glad to have you. Hey, you're my first guest in the way out Midwest, Minnesota. And I actually used to have
awesome.
a cousin who had a steer farm in Sleepy Eye, Minnesota. So it brings back. You know it? Yeah.
I actually, my day job, I work for a food service management company, and we do the food service for Sleepy Eye. So I do know it.
All right. It was one of those, for me, it was one of the, I was like 7 years old. So traveling across country in a station wagon. We used to have vehicles called station wagons for those listening. And it was both an adventure and it scared the shit out of me with the hogs and the steers. And we can go into that in another episode. But yeah,
I bet.
Good to have you. So let's start this way. Well, let's kind of roll into your how you found music or how music found you early in your life, and then let's kind of branch off from there and talk about the music that our audience just heard coming into the program, and let's see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, music has always been around me. My grandparents, my grandmother specifically on my dad's side, was his mom was incredibly musical, played the organ all by ear. And my grandfather ran an organ club back in the 70s. And so we would get dragged off to these organ recitals. And so that part of music was around, and just the theatrics and the showmanship was there. And then my dad was a huge fan of swing music from the 1940s. He loved his big band. So there's a big influence on my music of horn sections, of that big band feel, that big band sound. And then my mom on the opposite side was more of a Carpenter's Captain and Tennille sort of thing. Okay. So I had this really easy listening 70s vibe going on growing up. I'm the oldest of the two kids. And so I didn't have that older influence of what we now call classic rock. That didn't really come in to my life until I was more into high school. So a very heavy dose of that easy listening stuff gave me the breadth of sound, that more jazz focus of the big bands allowed me to have a depth of musical colors when I paint. Mm-hmm. I sometimes will do basic chords, A, C, G, but a lot of times there's the 7 and the 9 to give it that lush texture and color that I grew up with, and I just absolutely loved doing it. Then I went into high school. I got into music in choirs and in bands, playing instruments. Musical theater is a big influence in myself. I acted a lot in high school. Mm-hmm. And in fact, to this day, I still do musical theater drumming. And in fact, I'm doing a show this month, Striking 12, which is a pretty cool take on The Little Match Girl. So I keep doing that, and that keeps my reading chops up. That keeps my percussion chops up. Because drums are my main instrument. So I went to college and got a degree in percussion performance. I was going to be a classical marimbist. And if anyone doesn't know what a marimba is, it's like a bass xylophone. A beautiful sound, beautiful texture. But I was 21 and I had a purple mohawk, and that just didn't seem to be where things were going to lead me. And so music has always been part of my life, but it wasn't really the main way to make my bread and butter. But I always was performing in churches, in theaters. I've had a couple of bands. I play a lot with my friends who need a drummer, but really just kept that spark, that muse going. Then we came to the pandemic, and the world shut down, and my day job furloughed me. And I had this music software that I'd been sitting on my computer for a while. I had done just a few little things with it, and I decided, I had all this free time, I was going to really dig in and learn how to do home recording. And so everything that you're going to hear today, other than Superhuman, which I recorded with in an actual studio, is all been recorded here at home. I'm playing 90% of the instruments. I have a guitar player who does the guitar parts for me, who's way better than I am. I could play guitar, but it's not that pretty. Right. So really digging in and investing when I had that free time reignited that passion to share the music that I've created with the world.
You know, it's interesting. As I was listening to your music and looking at your influences, what really struck me is exactly what you said as far as the influences of Broadway and shows and swing and what have you. I recognize that in the sound of your voice and your vocals on your music. So that brings me to the question: how did you find your voice in music? Like, how did you come to putting the different flavors together to what you've just put down on tracks?
Yeah, so great question. Each person that writes and creates music does so obviously with their own voice and from their own pattern and process. I have it may sound like a rich radio voice right now, but it's not. It's kind of thin. It's not your Janis Joplin. It's not your Barbra Streisand. It's not your Prince. It's not that kind of color. It's a very Broadway color. my husband referred to it as a church music sound. So it's very pure. Because of theater, because of choral music, I also learned to enunciate. So a lot of times and that kind of gives it a Broadway flair, because as you're performing in a show, you want the audience to understand what you're saying. And that kind of is ingrained in who I am. So that colors some of my texture. I have to learn how to slur and do things differently. Like, for example, when I was recording Superhuman, and I recorded that with Matt Fink, who is Dr. Fink of Prince and the Revolution. We were in the studio recording a certain line, "If you need a beer, it's in the kitchen." And he was very specific in what he wanted to achieve with that sound. And so I had to say kitchen. I had to change the way I pronounce things because I was so articulate and so precise that it wasn't funky. It was just this white boy doing some music. So, but as I do myself, sometimes I play with sound. Sometimes I play with the way I pronounce things because I do want it to be a little bit more accessible. But it will always have that Broadway flair. I take a lot of time in writing my lyrics. I'm very specific in my choices. I give a lot of thought to what I put down and how I say it. And so I want people to understand the words. So that's that. But that colors my tone. That colors how I present music. And then you throw in years of show choir, and you've got a lot of these songs have choirs of 28 Paul Davids behind you, singing all these layers and levels, because that gives the color and the texture. And so that depth of sound is really important to who I am. And some of it, if you remember Yes, the group Yes, they had this song called Leave It back in the 1970s, which is a really great song. And they released an a cappella version on the B-side of their single of Leave It that was just the drums and the voices. And I absolutely played that on repeat. In fact, it's still in my iPhone on as one of the cycle things. But I love that rock sound with that kind of Queen, kind of Yes, kind of Styx, all have those thick vocals. And I really love to emulate that. So that's part of my sound. It's part of how I create music. Is I'm always going to start simple, but then I'm going to layer in those vocals. I'm going to layer in that texture, because that is kind of a progressive classic rock kind of sound. And I am a child of the 70s and 80s, so most everything I write is specifically influenced by the 80s, because I had a great time. And so that's always going to find its way through the music. It just is there. So that's kind of the process. All those elements came together. And I definitely now, as I'm recording and releasing, it always has that thick vocal texture that's a part of my sound. And that kind of, in my mind, makes up for the thinness of my voice, because I'm going to give you 28 I have one track that's coming out I'm working on called Affirmation that literally has 90 tracks of vocals. Wow. It starts from a single line and builds to the end. It's a chant that builds over 7 choruses to 90 voices thick. Freaking amazing. Yeah, it's very fun.
Now, it's interesting, Paul David, about the layering you just spoke about and finding your voice. I just did this episode with this great guy. I found him on Facebook. It's called Rock Voices. And he actually does choirs, started 10 years ago, that do just rock music. In fact, when you were talking about Queen, they did the Queen song, I Need Somebody to Love. And it was, I'm getting the chills now just talking about it, because there's something about layering and harmonies that really emote some great spirit about things. And to use that as an element in music, I think is a really great thing. And I'm doing a shameless...
It's very cool.
I'm doing a shameless plug for a previous episode, because that's what I... I'm sorry. That's what I do.
Yeah, you're allowed, man.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's like my
interesting.
Go ahead.
I would say interesting. I played a show with the Twin City Gay Men's Chorus about 3 years ago, right pre-pandemic.
Cool.
It was all the music of Queen, where we had a full live rock band and a full 180 voice men's chorus. We did Bohemian Rhapsody. We did Crazy Little Thing Called Love. We did Different Kind of Magic. We did. It's just the whole gamut. Was such a fun show to do, and have that giant choral sound. With this music that I grew up with was just, to your point, goosebumps. It was just very, very cool.
All right, so now you got to tell me the secret. How do you get a group of guys like that to actually all agree to do the same thing? Do you have one guy up front that takes total charge, or what?
Yeah, actually, yes. The interesting thing is, at the time was a gentleman I work with at the church I work for. He was the music director for the group, and the Gay Men's Chorus decides their repertoire by committee. So it just this is what we're doing, and there you go. And of course, being that it was a gay men's chorus, there was a lot of camp and humor involved in it as well.
Right.
So it was a really fun show. Absolutely fun.
That's
great show to drum for.
I'll tell you, it's something about music and community, and I keep talking about this, how even after the pandemic, how I think music, honestly, and I heard this from a friend of mine, I said, "Why do you do this?" He goes, "My music heals the world." And at first I'm like, come on. And then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? You're freaking right. And it really does. And it really can draw us together and heal the great divide that we all see in this country. So I think that's one of the cures, so to speak.
Well, what's interesting about music, to your point, it crosses boundaries. It crosses ethnicities. It crosses countries. It crosses gender identity. You hear something that inspires you. And to the point, it can heal the world, and that's kind of a lot of what I'm writing is very positive music. I did my first CD I did back in 1997, and it was
you're old.
"Woe Is Me."
Holy cow!
Yeah,
you were
am
like
old.
5?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're sweet. I was a lot older than that. And it was all that bad, all those emotions that I had that I was going through a breakup, and it was a cathartic experience. But that music isn't going to carry forward. It isn't timeless. There's a couple of good tunes on there. I got one called "Love Rain Down" that's pretty. That's okay. It was a bad day at work that actually inspired that one. But the music that I'm writing now, I'm choosing to do positivity. I'm choosing to make things happy. I'm choosing to write things that empower. It's always about, from a lyric standpoint, of changing the way you are. The song I wrote called "We Can Be Free" literally was written as the protests around the George Floyd murder were happening here in Minneapolis, and the Arby's that I helped open when I was 16 years old, my first job, burned to the ground. I was watching this building that I had part of my history. The Target that was raided was the Target that my grandmother used to go to. She lived in that neighborhood. To watch that just be burned to ashes, there would need to be a better way. And I believe there's a better way. I believe there's a more excellent way. And so "We Can Be Free" is all about, if you change your mind, if you don't see things the way people want you to see them, you can make a better world. We really have to choose to embrace that positivity. And as music does, it shows us that there's more in common with each other than there are differences with each other.
Yeah.
I think that's an important part of music, and it can do that, and it can do it in a way that isn't threatening. Because if I stood on a podium and told you that, you'd be like, yeah, it's whatever, it's not there. But if you're dancing it and you're living it in your body, you're incorporating that message into who you are. I think that's a powerful way to change the world.
Right. And conversely, I was thinking about when you're younger, and we write emotional songs about angst and lament, the blues and what have you. It does make a connection, because I think with the audience, at least for me, I can only speak for myself, is, wow, someone's going through something I'm feeling right now that I probably can't emote as well in music. But then, like any lament, even like in a psalm where it starts out, "Hey, Lord, things are crap, but I still look."
Right.
But they usually end up with, "Hey, I still look to you, and you're still solid." and that's
well, and those. Yeah, those emotions are really important. And please hear that I have a collection. I mean, Pretty Hate Machine, 9 Inch Nails, man, that got me through some stuff. Alanis Morissette, Jagged Little Pill got me through some stuff. And so that's an important part of it. I just realized there's a lot of that already out there. So what I want to do is I create my art, is I want to take the other side. I want to give the inspiration. I want to give, okay, so what happens after the fall? Okay, we all have the fall. We all go through crap, 100%. What do you do with that? And that's the part where I don't think there's a ton. There's some. And I want to add to that catalog. I want to do, trust me, I still got songs in the hopper that are, when I haven't finished I keep this book of lyrics, that from, just any good lines. There's one called "Shit or Get Off the Pot." I mean, that's definitely not moving forward. That's about getting your act together. I've not chosen to finish that, and probably that will not see the light of day, but still a great line.
Yeah. So, hey, let's do this. When we came into the program, our audience heard "Superhuman." Tell me a little bit about that, and then I'd like to jump in and talk about the next song. So tell me a little bit about Superhuman, how that came to be.
Sure.
And I never ask my artists to explain the song, but I'm interested on how you came about creating it.
All right. Well, the song is what it is for everyone, as every artist will say. But I was in the mood to create something, and this was back in 2013, so it's almost 10 years old. I have grew up here in Minneapolis and was a huge Prince fan.
Sure.
And that's a very, very cool thing. And, my husband and I listened to a very eclectic sort of music, and he got me into this artist called Robin, who's from Europe and does some cool things. And I liked that sound, and that led me to a group called the Teddy Bears, which is some of her backup band is that group, and she works with them. But it's a very kind of a high bop, kind of a B-52Z, but with electronica instruments. I thought, well, it'd be really cool to write a song like that. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of my color songs have 9s and 7s in, and it's very jazzy. I wanted to give myself an exercise and write a confection, something that truly has 3 chords. And I didn't do so well because there's a whole bridge section that's a bossa nova that's got the 7s and 9s, but the basic structure has those 3 chords, and I wanted to keep it very simple and write something that was sort of a kitschy, fun, energetic, entertaining, kind of a B-52Z thing meets the electronica sounds of the Robin and the Teddy Bear. So I kind of created the lyrics, and it's sort of boisterous. I'm superhuman is sort of a proclamation, but again, positivity.
Sure.
I actually reached out to Fred Schneider and asked him if he would be interested in the song for his catalog. I got a follow back on SoundCloud, but he declined to record it. So it ended up being myself and some good friends of mine. We had done some musical theater, so a lot of the horn players are from people that I've worked with in musical theater, as well as my background singers. We did a show 2007-ish called The Great American Trailer Park Musical, which is freaking hysterical. And the 3 women had a trio that sang a lot of this musical. They were like the chorus, the Greek chorus in the show. And so I pulled them in to record with me. And so we did the really fun backing vocals. I took some of the kitschy ideas from B-52s, and my husband did some of the voices. Matt Fink did the voice of Bela Lugosi in there, as well as the keyboard solo. But it was just an amazing bucket list item to work with someone who worked with Prince, and to go into his studio and see the platinum records on the wall of all these albums I grew up with, Around the World in a Day, Purple Rain, Parade. I mean, just an amazing eclectic mix of music that was foundational to who I was. Sure. Here's this guy that I've watched in music videos, and he's the nicest guy in the world. I mean, we at one point we shared a salad over his table, and just had conversations. And it was really fun to hear the stories of what really happened. This is before a lot of the stuff after Prince died came out and really talked about his generosity, talked about his personality. And so getting to hear the stories one-on-one was a very cool experience. In addition, it's the same time that Prince was getting his group Third Eye Girl up and going, and Matt had a side band called The Purple Experience, which was a cover band. And Prince liked to play practical jokes. He liked to poke the bear. And at one point, he kept it all incognito, but he was posting on Facebook about Third Eye Girl, and he made some comment about whether Third Eye Girl was going to get sued for doing Prince music, or if Matt Fink and the Purple Experience were going to get sued. And Matt's like, "That's Prince. He's just doing it to poke the bear," And that was kind of cool to be there as that was happening and be part of that experience. But to work with someone who has such a great musical gift, a great spirit, nurturing soul, and to bring something that was in my head to life like that was really just an amazing, amazing experience. I love it. I still listen to it today. It's catchy, it's funky, it's funny, it's dry. There's humor always all the way through it. Couple of words if you actually look them up. Soporific is a word. Sodorific is a word.
Well, I'm definitely putting those in the chapter marks, because we're all about education, and educating me is the prime source here. So.
Well, and the funny part is when you hear them in context, the lines make sense, but they sound nonsensical. And that was kind of what I was going for, that juxtaposition of humor and art. So there is a depth to it. But then, of course, if you need a beer, it's in the kitchen. It's just a great line. I mean, I don't know.
That's great. Hey, listen.
Actually, where the beer is. So if you need one, you're welcome. It's in the fridge.
Hey, listen, let's switch gears for a moment. You did touch upon the song "We Can Be Free." Let's talk a little bit about that, and then I want to jump into that song. And I'm sure the audience at this point, they want to hear more about what you've got, because this is so interesting to me.
Yeah, so this is one of the songs that started out as I was learning my digital audio workstation, and it all came about really around the time of the George Floyd riots and the riots for his murder. And it's important. I'm a very spiritual person, and as I do my journey, I work for churches, but I have a much more deep spirituality, and I know that there's more than we believe. There's more than we've been taught. There's more than we see. We're all connected. We're all one. Sure. And if we really understood that and changed our mind, we can change the world. And so that's the basis. And I was looking at the political landscape, and there were, there's, see that clown behind the curtain may refer to someone specifically. It may not.
Right.
I'll just leave that there. And I just was looking at that and seeing that, we have to put aside our political differences. We have to put aside those things that are separating us and rethink how we live life. And if we do, we can be free. We can free our minds. We can have a new thought, and that new thought will change the world. I use the line, we are part of the revolution. We're part of the change. We need to be the change we want to see. And that's really the background for the text in there. The song itself, it's sort of an 80s groove. It's sort of the groove for Mountains, layered in with, I have a drum called an udu, which is African clay pot. And I ran that through a processor. And so if you hear it from a distance, it's a very soft instrument, but when you mic that thing and give the resonance to it, it's a gorgeous sound, and it's a deep thum that you really can't get anywhere else. So I recorded that and threw it into a loop. So as the song progresses, there's depth to the udu groove, joins with the Mountains groove, for lack of a better phrase. And it's not the same groove. It's a completely different groove, but it reminds me of that. So I'm just going to No copyrights there. I checked. I made sure. But you throw that with it, and a cool, fun, jazzy bass line. And then one of the guys who played with me on the Queen show, who I met through musical theater, Alex Mayers, is a phenomenal guitar player. And he does 90% of my guitar work. And he's just a monster player. And so we really took this song, and we had just finished the Queen show a few years back, and so that was in our minds. And as I'm layering these vocals, it's reminiscent of Bohemian Rhapsody. My instructions with him, we kind of co-wrote this, is he has the guitar line that comments back on the vocal line. So it's kind of like two players doing a little dance, and then it definitely has that Brian May Queen sound. And you get to the end, and it's just this stack of guitar parts, this stack of vocal parts, that just are a monster. And it's all about we can be free.
All right.
We can be free to change our minds, change the world.
You've set a high expectation. So let's do this. Let's jump in the song, and then we'll regroup after everyone gets to hear it. So
I look forward to it.
Let's listen to We Can Be Free. We'll be right back after the song.
I know just what they wanted. I know what they want me to be. Things are not what they seem to be. Recognizing this will set us free. You feel trapped in confusion. You see what curtain. Dance, puppet, dance is what they want us to be. We are part of the revolution. We have the power to change. Can you picture the dawn of a new day? Do you feel alive in this place? We can be free. We can be free. We can be free if we open our minds. We can be free. We can be free. We can be free to live limitless lives. It starts with a spark of potential. Forgiveness, unity, courage, and kindness, the seeds. It grows person by person, with just one voice. Love and empathy can breed. We are key to the evolution. We are the source of the change. With our thoughts, we bring forth a new day. Do you feel the power in today? We can be free. We can be free. We can be free if we open our minds. We can be free. We can be free. We can be free to live limitless lives. We can be free. We can be free. We can be free if we open our minds. We can be free.
So, Paul David, that was a really great song. I really appreciate you
Thanks.
giving us the nuances and influences in song. That's what I love about talking to singer-songwriters and the things that we may not realize that are really put into taking all these different ingredients to create a song and your thoughts behind. So I really appreciate that. One of the things that struck me about being the change, right? I'm just going to tell you a little story. I was in Charleston, South Carolina with my wife, and we went on this Gullah tour. Gullah is actually a British Creole, right? And this black gentleman gave a phenomenal tour of Charleston, which is Charleston, South Carolina, great city. Mm-hmm. You may recall that at the AME church, there was a guy who came in and shot up a bunch of people in the church.
Yep.
And this gentleman told, and this line, the hair's raising on my arms right now, it had a couple of lines that really struck to my heart. And he said, you know, this guy came in here planning to create a race riot. He said the thing he didn't realize is we're all interrelated down here.
Yep.
And that kind of hung with me in that if we're going to be the change, our influence should be, hey, you know what? You're my brother. You're my sister. We're humans. We're all created in the same image. And we have to remind each other and ourselves, especially when we look at other, put that in quotes, which I think leads us down a dangerous road. So anyway, I was kind of struck by what you were saying about being free.
And that's absolutely true. And in the song, I've given you the key. Forgiveness, unity, courage, kindness are the key. And there's also a hidden message there for anyone who likes to dig and find hidden things. But it really is. It's about forgiveness. It's about unity, about getting together, the courage to make the change and the kindness to one another. And having that compassion and that forgiveness is key. And, the more people that remember that, there'll always be those that are trying to instigate that violence out of their own insecurity.
Sure.
And if we can retain those key principles, it can change the world.
Right. So if you look at the violence in speech, and we're in the political season right now, and you can see it left and right, and we're aghast of how people comment. It's almost like I'm going to shock in order to get on the news. So you're happy to talk about me no matter what the hell I say. But I think the opposite side of the coin is the conversation we have with music to bring back that kindness is key to healing the world, and circles back to how music can heal the world. It really
yeah, amen. Absolutely.
It really can.
Absolutely.
So what are we going to talk about next? Refresh my memory.
We're going to talk about Sunshine After the Rain.
All right, tell me about that.
Yeah, so this is a song I wrote for my husband. I had met him getting out of a bad relationship, The Rain, and we came up with nicknames way back in the day. I mean, we're on our 16th anniversary this year. So, thank you. And his nickname for me, or my nickname for him, was Sunshine.
Okay.
And so he had been chiding me that I'm writing all this music for everyone else in the world, but where's his song? Where's his song?
Right.
So one day I decided I was going to the inspiration struck. And, everyone writes music a different way. For me, this chord progression was based on, we talked about Robin a little bit. She has a song called Honey.
Okay.
And I was just playing around with those chords because I was trying to figure out a new direction I was going to go musically, and I kind of liked it. And then I took it in a completely different way. And there's this really bizarre descending minor pre-chorus section that just was like, that's cool. I'm going to keep doing that. And then I started throwing it together. I was playing in my station, so there's a couple of loops, and then I put live percussion over it. Almost everything I have has myself playing all the percussion, well, almost all the instruments, but
right.
I'll use loops in a capacity, but then I'll loop live percussion over. Sometimes the loops come out, sometimes they stay in, or they just become very soft in the mix, depending for a texture thing, because I like the different texture. But an interesting thing, where this is the 42nd episode, I'm a big fan of Douglas Adams and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Okay.
And if you're not familiar with that, there's this scene where this alien race wants to know the answer to life, the universe, and everything. So they build this giant computer that takes 600 million years to calculate. And when they finally get the answer to life, the universe, and everything is 42. And then the humor is, I don't think you asked the right question.
Right.
So in this song, I talk about, positioning my relationship with my husband as, he's the prize in my cereal box. He's the center of my Tootsie Pop. He's the question to the answer 42, to try to bring that humor into it. So there's definitely humor. And what a really interesting thing in this song, as I mentioned, I work in food service, and we had a major department store here in the Twin Cities where I used to run the restaurants. And this department store closed. Marshall Fields was the name, which was bought out by Macy's. And the downtown demographics just went to crap downtown Minneapolis, and they ended up closing our flagship store. And this restaurant, the Oak Grill, which I managed, was closing. And so we only took reservations over the restaurant.com. We couldn't do anything over the phone because we couldn't handle the volume. It was like Christmas for 3 months.
Wow.
Everybody who never shopped there and never ate there suddenly came down, and it was all these memories, and it was lovely. But this woman called and left a voicemail, in her opinion, a scathing voicemail. About how she couldn't use a computer. She doesn't have a computer. And she said, God bless America is one of the things she said. I actually recorded that audio, and that's another one of my songs, which people can find on my website, called Karen Wants a Reservation. I took that audio and turned it into an entire song. But I took that part, God bless America, and that's the commentary every time I have these pre-chorus little cheesy things. She comes in and says, God bless America. Like, what the heck are you doing? So that's really a fun piece. But again, it's another layered song, layered sounds. I this time took the background vocals and ran them through a processor to really condense them down and make them very computery sounding, but they're all me, and they're actually a full thick vocal. But it's just a fun little quippy song honoring a relationship of 16 years. You know, it's not that old love isn't the same as new love. No,
Right.
both are great. But as time goes on, you know, as we live our lives together, and we've both experienced loss in our families, loss of pets, changes in jobs, you know, it matures like fine wine. And that's really what I wanted to honor my husband with, and all long-term relationships, with something that looks at love many, many years down the road. And that's really Sunshine After the Rain.
And coincidentally, this is the 42nd episode of the Long Island Sound. So there's something there.
There you go.
Just saying.
Yeah, it's kismet. It's destiny.
Hey, let's listen to Sunshine After the Rain. We'll be right back after the song. Check it out, everyone.
Should we have seen this coming? Should we have known? Should we have known? Of all the planets in your orbit, could you feel my drum? Feel my drum? Was it you that found me, or the other way around? That first date, there wasn't a date. I don't know what you saw. You're the prize in my cereal box. You're the center of my Tootsie Pop. Now we have been together for quite some time. Quite some time. All the changes we've gone through in our shared life caused me to love you more and more. More today than yesterday, and all the days before. You're the surf on a perfect day. You're all those things I shouldn't say. You are my sunshine after the rain. My only sunshine after the rain. Your smile is a rainbow after the rain, breaking through my darkest day. When the world seems against me, I think of that smile. And that mischievous sparkle that lives in your eyes. When I'm with you, I'm happy. You always make me laugh. My love, I'm so honored to be your other half. You're Shakira when she shakes her hips. You're this pithy, clever little quip. You are my sunshine after the rain. My only sunshine after the rain. Your smile is a rainbow after the rain, breaking through my darkest day. Question to the answer 42. You are my sunshine after the rain. My only sunshine after the rain. Your smile is a rainbow after the rain, breaking through my darkest day. You are my sunshine after the rain. My only sunshine sunshine after the rain. Your smile is a rainbow after the rain, breaking through my darkest day. You are my sunshine after the rain, my only sunshine after the rain. Your smile is a rainbow after the rain, breaking through my darkest day.
Hey, everybody. We're back with Paul David Stanko. It's not Stanko. I've just been corrected offline. So there we go.
It's all good. It's all good. So yeah, Steve, it's a really funny thing about that song. So when I originally had written it, I had a line in there, and I was going to surprise my husband with it, but I couldn't wait. I was so excited to share it. And I had this great rhyme. You're the hook from a killer song. And I was like, what rhymes with song? And the only thing I come up with was, you're a hit for my favorite bong. And he's like, get that out of there. We don't smoke pot. So on my new single, Artist Prayer, I actually released the alternate version where there's a different chorus, and I put back in that line because I think it cracks me up every time I hear it. So and
you want to catch catch the edgy market. It's okay.
Exactly.
I mean, so that would play in New York very well.
And it does well on the gay charts as well. The alt version is doing better than the actual release.
Nice.
So I don't know.
Nice. That's great. Oh man, I tell you, I really appreciate you being on the program. I'm learning so much, especially about the way you're putting these ingredients together in the song. So thanks for elaborating on that. I think it really helps us.
Steve, my pleasure.
And it influences people. So let's talk about where we're going to go next. The next song in your music.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I released the alternate version on my new single, Artist's Prayer, which is a really interesting song and story in and of itself. I mentioned earlier that I collect, and I recommend anyone who's a writer, and you probably already do if you're doing this, but for those that are starting out, save all of your little thoughts, save all of your things in a binder, and you never know when you're going to look for something. I don't remember exactly what I was working on, but I needed a line, I needed something, and I was going through my folio, a very thick folio of lyrics and ideas and thoughts, and I came across something that I had written in 1993, and I was reading through this prayer, and I'm like, damn, this is actually good. The lyrics it's done, but it didn't have any music to it. And so I was sitting down and I was just playing at my piano, and I came up pretty quickly with a groove, and the lyrics just fit. And it really is an ode to that thing that all creative people do when you sit and you stare at a keyboard, when you're looking at a blank canvas as a painter, you're looking at a blank screen as an author, or an empty stage as a dancer. You really dig into your soul and ask, give me something to say.
Right.
Fill me with something. And as we were talking about earlier, because I know I can change the world. I want it to be something important. I want to see the world through an artist's eye, which is, art is designed to show you reality, but from a different perspective, to maybe open you up to seeing things a different way. And that's very important to how I write my music and choose my lyrics. I always want to show the world from a different facet, a different angle. And that's really what this is. It's a prayer to source, to universe, to God, pick your word, to give me something to say, give me a chance to bring something of value. And again, in typical Paul David style, it's layered with, thick vocals. I went with there's a couple different versions that I played through, but when I was working with Alex, my guitar player, we talked about a really consistent, almost chant-like drone. So the guitar part comes at the end, and it's slow. It's like 40, 50 beats a minute. I haven't looked in a while, but it's slow. But it has a lot of undercurrent rhythm, and there's a lot of texture and things, but it has that drone, that meditation. And, those of us on a spiritual path know that meditation, that repetition helps put you and open up your theta waves, your delta waves, and get you out of your head and can open you up to new things. And as an artist, that's the space we create. So that was a conscious choice in how I structured the song. layered with these, back to my jazzy 9 and 6 and 9 chords, 7 chords. They're just these thick layers of color and sound, and then it doesn't really have a chorus actually. This is just verse upon verse, and then it breaks into what I call the bridge, as the notes drip from my lips into a pool of sweet sound. What a cool lyric! The pool overfills the hollows to the cup of my soul where all my sins are drowned. This is my forgiveness, and then it goes out to the world. That is just. I love the lyrics. I love the texture and color and thickness that's in that part of the song. It just was a really fun thing to do, really meaningful, powerful, with the intent of helping explain to the world what we as artists go through in that creative process.
It's interesting when you talk about how it's layered with no chorus, just lyric upon lyric. It's exactly like a psalm. When you think about it, it's very, I don't know all the psalms, but it's very rare that you have, quote, a chorus. We plug choruses in the modern day language, but it's verse upon verse. So that's really interesting how scripturally it plays into it, at least in my humble opinion.
I agree, and I don't think you notice that there isn't a chorus.
Right.
I mean, the chorus becomes the oh, I'm praying for you. Oh, I'm singing for you. Oh, I'm painting for you. Oh, I'm dancing for you. That's how each verse starts, and really has that. That's the hook that will get you in. That's the part that, like a chorus, is that repetition that makes us feel like we're home, that we're, now we know where we're at. And so that's the hook that brings you in to each of the little sections. And it goes through all the different arts. I think I touch upon everything.
Great.
A little bit, yeah.
All right. So let's let the audience listen to Artist Prayer. We'll be right back after the song, everybody. Check it out.
The Spirit move me. Oh, I'm singing for you. Fill me with things to say. I know that I could be. Help to guide me, guide me, guide me on my way. Dancing for you. Help me find the rhythm. Oh, I'm painting for you. Help me find my artist side. I don't always act like one of the good ones. Inspire me all the same. Sound. The pool fills the hollows in the cup of my soul, where all my sins are drowned. I feel the cup overflow.
it move me.
Hey, everybody, we're back with Paul David. I'm telling you, what a plethora, and I actually said plethora without a P-pop on my microphone, I hope, of information and really eclectic music, and I say that with love in a good way, and great background on how you put it together. I think this is really going to provide the people who are listening to this podcast with some new creative ideas, which I think is great. So I
love that you use the word eclectic. I really do. I just want to just jump in and say, that's part of it. If you think about your playlist at home, you've got every kind of music, and as a musician, I play all kinds of music. And so I strive for never having my stuff sound the same.
Right.
There's a link to it. You can hear the colors that are the same, the vocal, the layering of vocals, but I want it to be eclectic. That's part of what I really want to do. So thank you for acknowledging
I said a
that.
nice thing. Thank you.
You did.
So tell me,
good for you.
What does the future hold? What direction are you going in? What do you have coming up?
So in the near future, I'm actually drumming for a show here in Minnesota by a company called Minneapolis Musical Theater called Striking 12. It's a very fun show about a take on Little Match Girl. And I get a singing drummer part.
Ooh.
I have actually a solo called Gotta Give the Drummer Some, which is just an amazing, I sing, I drum. I don't usually get to do the same thing at the same time, so I'm super thrilled with that.
Well, let me ask you,
how
did you weasel that into the program, or is that part of the program?
It's part of the show. They reached out to me.
Because, when a drummer steps up and says, hey, I got an idea, usually that's the last time the drummer is playing in that particular group.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah, no, this is actually this company I've probably played, I had the number at some point. I played like 30 different shows with them over the last 12, 13 years. It's where the Great American Trailer Park that I mentioned earlier was part of that same theater company. They do lesser known shows specifically, so it's going to be really
nice.
fun. I'm also working on a couple of tunes. I mentioned Affirmation. I'm working on the mix for that. I actually recorded that over a year ago, but the time wasn't right to quite release it yet. I think it's one of the most positive songs in the entire world. And I'm just waiting for the right time. I'm still tweaking the mix and then going back and looking at parts of it and re-recording because the time isn't quite right. My next real recording project is going to be a big band song. The clean version would be I've Got to Unwind Myself, which talks a lot about, I learned things when I was younger and I somehow messed up those lessons as I got to be an adult. And now I need to go back to that mindset, not being a kid again, but being free of the baggage that I've put on myself, free of the baggage of self-esteem, free and open in my sexuality, free and understanding that I got to care about only the things that really matter instead of all the bullshit in my life, which is actually a line. So I'm working on creating that as well.
Wait a second. You said that was the clean version. All right. What's the other version?
The actual title is "Gotta Unfuck Myself."
I love it.
So,
all right.
Yeah, it's all about.
Now I gotta
check
check the explicit box when I put this up on things. So.
You asked.
I think.
Come on, it's all about forgiveness, unity, courage, and kindness. If you know what I mean.
That kind of sums up the word, doesn't it?
It sure does.
That's great, man. I don't mean to cut you off. So did we cover everything that you've got? It sounds like you got a lot on your list, which is great. I really want to tell you, I really want to thank you for your time. I tell you, every episode I do, I feel like I'm the beneficiary and I get enriched by the artists that are sent my way from somebody. So I really thank it. And I end my podcast this way. But before I end the podcast, I just want to remind everyone who's listening, we have a listener line. It's 631-800-3579. You can leave your comments about any episode. We'd really like to get your feedback. And if you got something from this program, please share it with us. That way, as we move forward with more episodes, I can put a mindset to say, hey, this is what the listeners want to hear about. Please share, rate, and comment on the program. And I do get a lot of feedback. People really enjoy the program. So putting that commercial aside, And I do thank you for your time. And a good friend, Bob, told me a long time ago, it struck me that, you know what, we can account for what we own, what we have in the bank. We can never account for how much time we have on this earth. And Paul David, the fact that you gave me a lot of your time today and you were very open and shared your heart with me is a gift. So I thank you for being here.
Oh, Steve, my pleasure to do so. Thank you for providing this platform. Thank you for being here. It's been my pleasure to spend this time
All
with
right.
you.
I look to have you back next year and we can follow up and see the more eclectic things that you're bringing to the world to help you out.
Absolutely.
All right, brother. Until next time, we'll see you. Be well, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you for joining us today. I appreciate the time you spent with us. Please subscribe and comment and visit us at gigdestiny.com. Till next time, be generous with your joy, keep your spirits high, and let the music take you on a journey. Be well. Peace. Thanks so much for listening. Please rate, review, and comment on the show. We really love to hear from you. And call our listener line at 631-800-3579. Again, thanks so much. Be well.